Now let's talk more about that and other political issues with Kontra Daya convener Prof. Danilo Arao. Hey Prof, thanks for joining us today.
Yes, thank you, Angela, Angelo, or Diego. Thank you for the invitation. Kontradayang araw ng mga puso sa inyong lahat, lalo na sa inyong dalawa.
It's so nice to see you back again on TV. Of course, syempre, siguro yung reaction na lang po ninyo, no, as the lead convener of Kontra Daya. Dito po muna, dun sa report muna, earlier, yung sa sinusulong po, matagal na sinusulong na batas ni Senator Panfilo Lacson, itong waive, no, ang pag-waive ng bank secrecy ng mga government employees and public officials.
Okay. Yes. Yung waiver naman ng bank secrecy, kinakailangan naman talaga ng transparency sa ating gobyerno. Pero syempre, may konting nuance dun sa usapin ng waiver kasi hindi ito dapat kasama yung mga ordinaryong mga empleyado. Pero for government officials, dapat mas maluwag yung polisiya tungkol dito, lalo na kung ikaw ay akusado ng plunder, graft and corruption, and other related crimes. So this particular legislative intervention by the former senator would have to be strictly reviewed so that we can ensure transparency and not tolerate yung culture of secrecy, especially among the high government officials.
Alright, Prof, I want to talk about also itong recently na nilabas po ninyong statement regarding dito po sa mga na-flag po ninyo na mga party list na supposedly hindi po sila talaga nagre-representa ng marginalized sectors. Paano nyo po ba, ano po yung naging basehan ng inyo pong pag-aaral tungkol doon?
Anim yung basehan ng pag-flag sa 86 or 86 out of 156 party list groups. Technically 155 kasi may isang nag-withdraw noong Disyembre.
Yeah.
So unang criterion yung political dynasty, pangalawa yung big business o malaking negosyo, ikatlo yung connection sa pulis at militar, ika-apat po yung mga pending na kaso ng korupsyon, plunder, graft at iba pang related sa misuse and abuse ng government funds. Ikalima po yung kaduda-dudang advokasya o dubious advocacy. At yung panghuli naman ay yung limitado o walang sapat na impormasyon kasi yung galawan ng ilang mga party list hindi talaga nagpapakilala para hindi mabisto. Pero minsan may baluarte na sila ng at least 200,000 votes para makakuha ng kahit isang upuan. So this would be the basis for the flagging. So just to be clear, 55.13% yung na-flag namin. So mahigit kalahati po ay hindi kumakatawan sa mga mahihirap po ng ating bayan.
Yeah, Prof, initially kasi yung party list system, no, yung I remember back nung mga 88, 92 nung pinag-uusapan na ito. Initially, the meat of it or the goal of it was syempre to provide an adequate voice for those who are marginalized. But syempre, yung nangyari po sa Supreme Court, hindi po nakatulong sa cause natin lahat because now, instead of the marginalized being represented, it's just an extension of the big political parties or existing dynasties. Now, what can we do habang wala pa po yung batas na kailangan natin para maayos itong sistema? In the meantime, para at least man lang to give fairness to other candidates who are really naman sa party list, who are really want to represent the marginalized.
So, syempre, immediately, dito sa election cycle na to, sa 2025, we can only go to the extent of encouraging voters to choose wisely based on reliable information. So that would explain for the data set that we made publicly available that anybody can freely download, whether you're part of the media or you're just an ordinary concerned citizen. Or any other organizations would be free to further popularize the data set, given that, for example, me as a 57-year-old, I don't speak the language of today's generation. So we encourage the youth to freely popularize it much better than I do. But in the medium term, Diego, the legislative intervention is absolutely necessary. There are pending bills already on reforming the party list law. Many of them are quite good and make better sense than the 1995 law. But of course, in the medium term, it's also crucial for the COMELEC to step up to exercise and maximize its quasi-judicial function in such a way that they can carefully screen everything. Siyempre, commendable din naman yung ginawa ng COMELEC ngayong election cycle na they rejected 200 applications. Kaya lang, I just want to be clear that some of those rejected are actually complaining because they come from the marginalized and underrepresented. Kasama sila sa mga na-reject din. So, due diligence on the part of COMELEC is also necessary. Kung pumalpak sila sa pagpili sa senatorial, sa mga senatorial aspirant, kaya nga nag-reset tayo, ilang beses tayong nag-reset ng printing para lang ma-accommodate yung mga reversal ng Supreme Court. Ganon din yung nangyayari sa party list selection. So they should shape up and exercise due diligence.
Oh, at least, Prof, mabigyan ng equality amongst those who really want to serve. No, I'm also, Prof, I'd like to pick your brain on this kasi I took a look at yung mga surveys recently and I've seen candidates. Kasi alam mo, Prof, for a while, in the last 6-7 years, for a while, medyo bumabalik na tayo sa mga qualified candidates sana eh. Pero parang sa survey ngayon, nakikita ko, we're veering back towards yung mga sikat. What do you think is happening, Prof? Bakit bumabalik tayo sa personality base? Is it this generation that has access to social media at sila ang nakikita?
Okay, that's a good point. For Kontra Daya, we don't blame the voters or in this case, the respondents in the surveys that you cited. This has more to do with the visibility brought about by vast amounts of financial resources as well as technological and technical resources at their disposal. So, Angelo and Angela, it's still money politics that come into play. We are reminded of the 1965 coinage called guns, guns, and gold, o yung 3 Gs. Despite the high level of technology that we have right now, despite generative AI and all that, it's still the old-fashioned way of having the money and having the power and influence that you would not want to let go of. And that would be the defining factors for your continued good performance in the surveys. So yung pagiging celebrity, it's just one of the many factors. Kasi alam mo, Angelo, Angela, through the years, may mga celebrity naman na sikat, pero wala silang sapat na financial na rekurso, so natatalo pa rin sila. So it all boils down to how well connected you are to the powers that be, lalo na yung tinatawag nating malapit sa kusina. So that would also partly explain the mixed performance of bloggers, influencers, content creators who are trying their luck to run for public office. Yung iba, maganda yung performance so far sa mga survey, whether local or national, pero yung iba, naglalag behind rin, and some of them are even forced to withdraw kasi nga wala talaga silang pera or limitado yung kanilang resources.
But Prof, a lot of people are saying to be able to beat this tradition, itong pera talaga ang mukha ng politiko, ng politika rather, ay educate yung ating mga voters. But how many years have we been talking about this also na let's educate voters, but how? How can we tap the grassroots, diba? Ito, para magkaroon talaga ng connection, yung educating the voters natin at malaman talaga nila ano ba yung dapat na gawin.
Okay, there is good voter education and there is effective voter education. How do we distinguish between the two? Ang voter education that's supposed to be good should provide basic information, especially what to do on election day. Kumbaga maganda yung mga impormasyong yon, pero to be effective, you need to have a sharp analysis of not just the election system but also the political system. We cannot help but discuss the reality of political dynasty, big businesses, as well as even disinformation coming into play as being decisive in the winning and losing of certain candidates. At saka kahit yung something as basic as the right of suffrage has become a right of to suffer, quote-unquote, among people because it's not as if all of us have the free will to choose our preferred candidates. So that's why we have to check each other's privileges as well, lalo na sa mga probinsya, sa mga remote rural area, kontrolado lalo na ng mga negosyo at ng mga dynasty. May paraan para makita at matunton, matrace kung sino ang bumoto sa kanila o hindi. And sometimes they have to vote out of coercion, out of fear and intimidation. Kaya nga yung iba, yung nagiging mindset, sige, pikit mata ko na lang tatanggapin yung binibigay at iboboto ko na lang kesa naman sa mapahamak ko. So, kumbaga, we should not be judgmental to people who are forced in a situation of, well, for lack of a better term, force majeure. So, kumbaga, mahirap talaga yung nagiging buhay at kabuhayan ng mahihirap kasi sa interes ng mga political dynasty at malalaking negosyo na manatili silang mahirap para yung culture of dependence, culture of mendicancy, or even culture of impunity will be normalized in many areas in the country.
Prof, I wanna go back dun sa party list system yung na-flag po ninyo no, during po doon sa inyong recent statement. Yung sinabi niyo po isa sa mga basihan ay no specific details on their nature of their work. Ano po bang specific na details yung dapat na nilalagay po ng mga nominees under a party list system?
When you fill out your CONA in terms of occupation, you can put their businessman, but the more ideal would be to provide details. What kind of business do you have? What's your position? What is the corporation of which to which you are connected? Those are information that should be made public. Sa totoo lang, Angela and Angelo, we're not concerned about home addresses or contact numbers. Hindi naman tayo ng dodoks at hindi naman tayo stalkers. But the publicly available information related to elections would be the nature of your work because that will be the basis for ascertaining your track record. Kaya nga yung isa sa mga frustration din ng researchers namin sa Kontra Daya, at first, we were happy that finally, after so many years, yung mga CONA or your certificates of nomination and acceptance of the party list nominees, there are 10 of them per party list group, finally, publicly available na. Pero nung dinownload namin, tapos inisa-isa namin yon, talagang ang daming kaso na masyadong maramot sa impormasyon yung mga party list nominee. Siguro talagang may tinatago po talaga sila. So that's why we're able to flag 9 party list groups na talagang hindi sapat yung impormasyon. No matter how hard we tried, they don't have social media presence, they don't have websites, kahit yung address nila mahirap hanapin. So kumbaga pangalan ng party list yung nandoon and then the names of the 10 party list nominees, which is ironic, please bear with me, kasi kung ikaw kumakandidato ka, you will take pains to introduce yourself to the public. But there are those that opt not to because they have the bailiwick votes already, apparently. That's one way of reasoning. So they only need to maintain 200,000 or so votes so that they can get at least one seat.
Alam mo, Prof, I'd like to ask your opinion on this no? Kasi I'm reviewing the history of party lists around the world. The party list system was developed very similar kasi nanggagaling sa isang union sa states. The unions, the Teamsters ang tinatawag. And traditionally, if you look at the Teamsters or the unions, yung mga pinuno nila comes from within the organization. Now, ang tanong ko sa party list, for example, ako, I own a corporation that owns several security guard agencies. Tapos tatayo ako party list, ang pangalan ng security, ang party list ko, ang security guard. Pero hindi ako security guard, tas first nominee ako. Ano opinion mo dyan? Should that person be allowed to be a nominee?
No, he or she should not be allowed for the simple reason that you're representing a sector. Of course, you can always argue that I'm the CEO of the security agency, therefore I know what they're going through. Pero which would be a better choice? Yung security guard mismo na kumikita, let's say, ng minimum wage, kung kumikita man siya ng ganun kalaki, or siya ba ay regular o contractual, tapos alam niya yung araw-araw niyang pinagdaraanan. Kasi kung ikaw naging CEO ka or presidente ng isang security agency or recruitment agency, most likely your social status will be different from that of your people or the security guard. So, kumbaga ngayon, don't get me wrong, Angelo and Angela, technically these are legal, no thanks to the 2013 Supreme Court decision that you cited a while ago. Yeah, pero that doesn't make it right. And it doesn't make sense. Para mo na rin sinabi na okay lang na yung may-ari ng mga kumpanya ang taguyod ng interes ng mga manggagawa. But we all know the
Yeah.
experience during collective bargaining agreement, they're usually on opposite sides of the fence.
That's right.
Right,
So how
right.
can that happen? It doesn't make sense.
Oo. Prof, panghuli na lang kasi unfortunately we don't have much time, but hopefully we can have you again on our show. Are you confident of or with the COMELEC's handling of the election campaign or election preparations rather, especially nabalot po ng iba't ibang issue, no, yung preparations na ito, including yung sa mga yung Miru system?
No, we're not very satisfied and we've been critical since day one as regards the awarding of the contract with Miru. Thanks for bringing it up, by the way. And this could explain why St. Timothy, which has a joint venture with Miru, yung party list system, yung party list nila na Pinoy Ako, of which the second nominee is from St. Timothy, talagang flinag din namin yan and we made public certain, information about the nominee, Diskaya, di ba? Kasi hindi lang yung taga-Pasig yung dapat nating pinagtutuunan ng pansin na tumatakbong mayor ngayon. But anyway, Angela, the COMELEC has a lot of explaining to do. And we also criticize its tokenism of transparency. Masyadong tokenistic Nag-upload ka nga ng CONA pero yung pag-check sa the way the party list nominees filled out the information, parang hindi rin kompleto. So kung naging transparent ka sana, lubos-lubusin mo na and you encourage the party list nominees and the party list groups to provide adequate information to the public. Hindi yung papahirapan mo pa yung mga researchers tulad namin na kami pa yung maghahagilap nito. We should, just for the record, Angelo, we shouldn't be doing this if the government, particularly COMELEC, has been transparent in the first place. Sana dumating ang panahon, di na namin kailangan gumawa ng dataset na more than 1,500 nominees yung sinuri namin kung nandyan na sana yung datos.
Alright, on that note, maraming salamat po sa inyong oras, Kontra Daya Convenor, Professor Danilo Arao. Thank you and happy Valentine's Day.
Kontra Dayang araw ng mga puso sa inyo.